All right, everyone, just to show what I did here. I did the whole valve adjustment, set all the injector heights, and I did have a lot of valve clearances that were far too tight, which could have caused some performance issues, not allowing proper combustion, allowing some of the combustion gases to escape if valves weren't seating properly. So got all that done. I put the front Jake brake back in. I also put the rear Jake brake back in, all torqued down. Was not able to put the center one in, so it'll act like a two-stage, because as you remember, the embossment down there is broken and the bolt that's in the one down here is broken off in the block. So if I don't hook up the third Jake brake, what happens is the Jake brake system is going to know that it's not connected. It will show an open circuit code, basically. So what I've done is I took the actual solenoid out of the third Jake brake. I grounded with a hose clamp to the outside of it, and then ran a bolt right through there. See, these are kind of like unused holes. Ran a bolt right through there, so I got a good ground. Now all I have to do is zip tie this up in here someplace, route the wires so they're not going to interfere with any of the moving part, just like the rest of the wires that are in there. And the system will think that the third Jake brake is there, so it'll tell it to activate, but without any oil pressure, it's not going to do any good. So the only thing that I'm a little bit confused about is that the Jake brakes works off of hydraulic pressure. I just can't seem to find where that hydraulic pressure is supplied to the Jake brake. Where it mounts on the engine, I do not see any type of oil supply going to them. So I don't know if they have their own oil supply that's sealed in, and then when it's activated, it just allows it to pump. It looks like there's little rollers on the bottom that maybe the cam actuates. Let me show you. This is the unit that I'm not reinstalling. And of course, it's got the 3 mounting points, one there, and one down there. I've just got this rag in here because that's where I took the solenoid out. So when you flip it over, you can see the mounting points, and there is no provision anywhere for oil supply to get in there. But there are these little nubs here. There's one there and one there, and that sits right above where the cam goes. So I believe that the cam would push on these, and that creates a pumping action to the oil that is already being held inside, maybe. If that's the case, then my plan should work fine. The only problem I'd have is if there is some kind of an oil supply there and that Jake brake isn't on there, then obviously oil is going to be squirting up into the valve cover someplace, which could cause a drop in pressure. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. So looking back at the engine, you'll see this is the injector push rod arm. You can see there's a second roller here. There's one here that actually actuates the injector. This one here just free spins. And where this one's bolted in, that lines up perfectly where those little pieces are underneath the Jake brake housing. Now there are holes in here, but I don't see how with this arm it is supplied with oil. See, this one doesn't have the holes. Well, no. That one does not. This one does. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 3 or 4 holes in this one. You can see that. So I don't know if that's for oil supply somehow. But again, looking back at these, those followers or lifter type pieces, there's no holes in them, so there's no way that they could take oil through them. And I've actually put in 2 emails to Jacobs Engine Dynamic Brake Systems, or Jacobs Engine Systems, however they call it. And they've not returned my calls, and it's been over a week. There is no phone number, so it had to be through the email, so I've had no luck getting a hold of them. I can't seem to get any hold of anybody at Detroit to get any technical information there. And then trying to find a reputable Detroit shop someplace. I just don't know of any just yet because I do all my own work typically, but I'd love to have someone to talk to and ask questions. My local shop here, he really just works on Cummins and Cat. He really doesn't mess with Detroit all that much. So no luck there. I've also spent quite a bit of time Googling and trying to find manuals, and nothing tells me where the oil comes from to supply those. I just can't seem to find it. I know it's got to be out there. I'm just having trouble finding it. I read someplace that Jake brakes are supplied with engine oil, but I can't see where engine oil gets into that unit, so I'm just not sure. So I think what I'm gonna do is get that wire zip tied up, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start the engine with the valve cover off and see what happens, see if I see anything squirting out that shouldn't be squirting out. That way I can monitor it and know what's going on before I put the valve cover on and can't see anything.
Hi guys, I know it's noisy.
All right, and as I was revving the engine, I turned on the Jake brake system, and they're working. Now, how well they work, we'll know until we actually road test it. But, well, I guess at this point, just need to put the valve cover back on, and then we can try to take it for a road test and see how it does. Well, everyone, in the last clip that you saw, I had the Jake brakes on, the valve adjustment done. All that was left was to replace the valve cover gasket, put the valve cover back on, close the truck up, and done. I was so excited that I was that close to being done. And then the things that you don't think would take very long took forever. So now it's the next day. It's Monday morning. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. The gasket turned out to be an absolute pain in the rear. Let me show you what's going on here. So a task like installing a new valve cover gasket shouldn't be that hard. And here's the gasket. It's like a O-ring type style gasket, but it's almost shaped like a diamond in a way. So it's real wide in the middle and it tapers to the outside edges. And it fits in the groove that goes all the way around the top of the secondary valve cover plate. So I peeled the old one out, go start to put new one in, and I can't get it to go in. I spent probably 2 hours getting that gasket in the track the first time, and then I had 4 inches of slack left over. I guess I had stretched it trying to get it in there, and it's hard to get in some of these little nooks and corners. Keep in mind, I'm standing way back here, trying to lean over and do it, so my back was killing me. The areas back there at the back of the head, I was inside laying on the floor, reaching with my arms above my head, basically, trying to do that. So I decided to start working it around and working it around to try to take up some of the slack and kind of squishing the gasket back up in case I pulled it. And I ended up working it around 2 more times, 2 more laps around the valve cover. And I still had like 1/2 inch of extra material. And at that point, it was 10 o'clock at night. So almost 4 hours last night trying to put a dang valve cover gasket in. It took longer to get the gasket in, and I'm still not done with it, as you can see. But it got to the point where I figured I just stretched it out. Maybe I'd warmed it up too much. So I thought maybe if I just let it sit overnight, maybe it'll shrink down. And today, hopefully I can get it in there a little bit better. So I'm gonna try this one more time and hopefully I can get it in there. All right guys, just to show you what I'm up against. So I got that in there the rest of the way. It took me about another 20 minutes. It's definitely going into the groove easier now than it was yesterday. But this is the problem I'm having. I've got like 2 inches of material left there that I can't get to go anyplace. And I've scrunched and scrunched and scrunched. I've gone around this valve cover 3-4 times, keep pushing it one way or the other. And I just can't seem to make any more headway. I end up pushing it into where it pops out someplace else. So it's, I don't know what to do. I know the wrong thing to do would be to cut that, make it fit in, but it may be what I have to do for now because I got to get this truck back together today without a doubt. All right guys, and after hours and hours of fighting with this, I finally made a decision. It's a decision that I wouldn't normally make. It's a bad decision, and I know it's a bad decision, but I'll explain to you why I did it. Yeah, I went ahead and cut it. So you see there's my little gap right there. Not too bad. This is how much I took out of it. Probably a good 2.5, 3 inches. Now my big fear here is that now, as this thing runs, this may shrink up and this may cause a gap here. Worst case scenario, I get an oil leak. But this truck has to be back together today. I don't have time to mess with it anymore. So if it causes a problem, I will simply order another gasket.
Make sure to order one directly from Detroit Diesel so that it's the right one. Maybe there's some with just tolerances were too long or something. I don't know. I'll probably put like a dab of silicone there where the two of those meet, and hopefully we'll be okay with that. All right, guys, I've had it running for about 10 minutes now, and so far, no signs of an oil leak, but it's just been idling. And it may be in my head, but it sounds like it's actually running a little quieter than he used to. So I guess it's a possibility with that Jake housing up there being loose. It could have been adding a little extra rattle up there. You know, that one bar was broken, so it was rattling around up in there. So maybe stuff like that. I always thought there was a little bit more noise than what it should be expected, but not being super familiar with these engines yet, I'm learning as I go. Wasn't real sure, but I'm gonna take it for a test ride here in a few minutes, get some RPMs going, check out the Jake's work, going down some of the smaller hills here before I get into some big mountains. And then I've also got to do a brake adjustment before I take it for a drive too. This truck is so old, it's all manually adjusted brakes. So about every 5,000 to 10,000 miles, I like to get underneath there and just give them a quick adjust. And because we're going to be going through the mountains up to Laconia, I definitely want to make sure they're adjusted as best they can be before we head out. All right, everyone. So I finished up getting the brakes adjusted and a few other things. I took it for a test drive, probably about 25 miles or so round trip. And it's not leaking oil, so that's a good thing, at least not yet. However, it wasn't as big of an improvement in overall operation as I hoped it would be. The Jake brakes are still very weak. Of course, now I know that I only have 2 stages. Before I thought that I had 3. Apparently I only had 2 because it's working exactly the same as it was before. So we're just gonna have to ride it like that and see how it does. And one of these days I'll be able to replace that head and get all 3 Jakes on there working again. But until then, it's just gonna have to work like this. Anyway, this is not at all how I intended this video to go. My intention was on this couple of days, I was gonna go ahead and do another show me the monies with the trucking business and break down those last couple trips we haven't done yet. Let me rephrase that. The breakdown those last few trips that we took that we haven't done basically a pay report on. So I wanted to do that and then just kind of throw in this little bit of an update on Goliath in while I was doing it, but I didn't expect this to turn into such a pain in the butt getting that valve cover and everything on. I mean, I literally spent almost 5 hours trying to install a valve cover, which is just ridiculous. So either way, I didn't get time to do all that, and I ended up with a lot more footage on this than what I had planned on. So, and the reason this had to be done so quickly is because tomorrow morning, Tuesday, the 1st, Katie and I are flying out to Minnesota. A good friend of ours is getting married up there. And when we fly home, which I believe we're coming home on like the 7th or the 8th or something like that, we only have a few days until we have to be in Laconia, New Hampshire for the motorcycle rally there. It starts on the 12th, so we really need to be there to set up by the 11th. So if I get back on the 8th, it's pretty much, I don't have any time to get there, let alone mess around with this, which is why I was trying to get all the major service done on this before we headed out to Minnesota, so that when we did come back, all I have to do is just load our personal stuff in it, load the car into it, and be on our way. So that's why I had to take a couple shortcuts here just to get it going. If it leaks oil, I'll replace that valve cover on a day where I've got more time. And I'll use OEM parts next time, maybe. I don't know if that's gonna make any difference or not. Anyway, I have one more question for you guys. Like I said, we're going to Minnesota. It is purely vacation. There's no trucking, there's no motorcycles. It's just hanging out with some friends, going to a wedding. I didn't know if any of you guys wanted me to still document some of that stuff. I mean, I know it's getting into the personal things, and most people probably aren't going to care about too much personal, and I don't want to put out too much personal either, but I didn't know if it was just stuff that people would be interested in. So leave a comment below if it's stuff you want to see, or if we're just going to take a week off from doing videos while I'm up there doing that, and then we'll resume on our trip to Laconia. So let me know in the comments what you think, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and all that good stuff like all the YouTubers are supposed to say. And until the next time I see you, keep those engines running.